Welcome to episode 10 of At Home at Highclere for Viking.TV. And today I've come down to the monk's garden, and I thought I'd share some of its secrets and history and how beautiful it is today with you. So as you can see, I've walked past this extraordinary row of arches. This would at one point have been an entire wall, because this garden dates back to at least the 13th century. We have records of 61 different apples and pears which were planted here in about 1216. And I think in the 18th century, when Countess Brown built an amazing kitchen garden towards the other side of the castle, this was then made into a more ornamental space to be enjoyed by the family and friends. Against this wall here is one of my favourite roses which Geordie and I planted. It's called Compassion. I think I planted it really for its name, but it's also very pretty, pale apricot and scented. And underneath it is a very important part of our heritage and what we use today. It's a beautiful bed of lavender. And in fact, we take the lavender and we use some of it in our Highclere Castle Gin. So when we were trying to make the gin, we were looking for what inspired us today. And of course, the lavender is such a signature plant in this amazing garden. Behind me at the back is a bed of scented roses and some beautiful Johnson's blue geranium, one of my favourite sort of bedding plants. It's an amazing colour and seems to flower forever. And quite soon some penstemons will come up as well. And then you've got the peach house bed, which is so called along there. And Geordie and I created that, I suppose, about 10 years ago now. I guess we're getting older. And it's all about texture. It's about fennel and yuccas and euphorbias. And then, as you can see, the backbone of the colours at the moment are there's the blue, there's the orange of the wallflowers, which will soon be over. Some astrantia coming up, some delphiniums. My husband loves delphiniums. And later on there'll be salvias, and I think some lobelias, and later on some dahlias, Bishop of Landroth, which is a deep red one. I hope it gives many visitors pleasure, as it gives Geordie and I such pleasure. So this is now just an ornamental green grass lawns around a central circle of pink roses, which I hope I can share with you later on in the year. They're looking very healthy, but not a single rose has flowered yet. And then a central line of yew trees which are clipped into arches. I think these were rather Victorian, a Victorian edition, but they're absolutely charming. And the wall at the very far end of the yew tree arches are crab apples. And in fact, there's still some things that you can actually make crab apple jelly with, some medlars. And the tree that I paused at is actually a mulberry tree. And I can just see the first green berries, the green seeds coming along. And mulberries are delicious. I end up eating more of them than ever collecting them, but it's just the one tree. So they are very good. They're slightly sharper than other fruits such as raspberries and completely delicious. So I'm going to move along to the peach house bed and then to share with you the crab apples, vines, figs, and mulberry trees at the far end of the garden. So I hope you'll come with me there next. The monk's garden, the slope of the monk's garden faces south, and actually right behind there is a frost gate leading out into the Wood of Goodwill and Arboretum. But in this particular bed it's quite dry, but you can see how well all the plants are doing. The Johnson's blue geranium again, there's the delphiniums at the back, and I can see that there's going to be some Russian sage, which is a pale blue flower, coming up, as well as the white peonies, which are just wonderful. They're nearly over, but they're joys to watch in their last few days. Behind the bed is the peach house, and in front of that there's a long line of vines. I'm not sure whether they'll produce any grapes. We have in fact got a vinery behind this peach house, which is partly inside, so it does produce the grapes, which are coming on very well. And the wall to one side of me is full of the crab apples and the figs, and with the weather such as we have, there's such a good chance of a really good crop and lots of fruit this year. The best fig tree lies in a corner of this garden, where this particular wall meets the south-facing wall just behind, and the bricks of the wall somehow capture the heat of the sun, which help the figs ripen. And then it's just such a joy to work out the many different ways to enjoy the figs, from baking them with a bit of balsamic vinegar in the oven to just eating them raw. It's just amazing. Or making fig jam or fig chutney and figs in salad and figs with goat cheese. So many ways. The other side of me is a quince tree, and again this autumn is an opportunity to make some quince jelly, which is delicious to eat with cheese. So this garden, whilst it's beautiful with its lawns and a place for people to wander through, is still productive. And I think that makes it still quite special. And the walls at the bottom go back to medieval times, and at the top to the Georgian times. So this garden, we're also walking in time. Thank you for joining me here. Welcome back inside, and as you can see, I've collapsed on a sofa in what is actually Mercia bedroom. I've still got Stella and Freya, the two Labradors, with me, who have heard their name and so wagging their tails, but I hope they will stay collapsed and not knock anything over in here. Mercia bedroom is a lovely bedroom. It faces south. Thank you very much, Freya, darling. And I thought this was a good place to begin sharing some stories about the bedrooms at Highclere Castle. This is actually one that I ended up decorating probably about 2 years ago, although it was in fact used in Downton Abbey. So when Geordie and I took over the stewardship of Highclere after his father had died, which actually was on September the 11th, 2001, but over here, and it was very sudden, we ended up taking over the stewardship of the house, and his parents had never lived in the house or used the bedrooms. So some of these rooms were just used, and they had different exhibits in different parts of history and heritage. But they weren't bedrooms, and it was trying to work out what is a stately home, what's the purpose of it, and how to make it resonate, how to, I suppose, make people fall in love with a stately home again. So that was really where we started, and I started decorating and doing up many of the bedrooms and the bathrooms, because I think the heart of a home is not just the stones, it's the people you ask to stay, it's the meals you share, it's the laughter you share, the stories, the friendship, sitting around a dining room table, playing Cluedo or playing hide and seek. And there's loads of places in this house to play hide and seek. And there was also quite a lot of refurbishment to do. So gradually over the years, I found my way round many of the bedrooms. And then when Downton Abbey filmed in them, they would start filming in them, and sometimes they'd use a corner back in the studio if they hadn't quite got it all done. But I've always got records of the colours and the wallpapers, so they'd borrow a bit to recreate a room in Ealing Studios. In Mercia, of course, this is where O'Brien used to jump out of what's a cupboard there, pretending it was a door to the maid's room, I guess. And Lord and Lady Grantham, or Hugh Bonneville, and Elizabeth McGovern would be in bed behind me, and there'd be about 30 Downton Abbey crew in here. Or sometimes Hugh Bonneville would leap out of a door behind the camera, which is a door to an interconnecting bedroom. And of course, there was quite a famous scene when
Richard E. Grant, who was, I think, called Simon Bricker in Downton Abbey, and Hugh Bonneville had a bit of an argument in Mercia bedroom, and they were both in love with Elizabeth McGovern, Lady Grantham. So it's been a very busy bedroom, and it's a very beautiful bed. When we refurbished the bedroom, this was really, the bed was what inspired me. It's an 18th century bed with beautiful embroidered wall hangings, and this slightly prosaic cream blanket covers a really rather lovely decorated but faded Chinese cover behind. And so the silk and the ivory inspired the decoration, and the ivory slightly distressed colour of the walls, an oyster colour. And then we found and bought and actually created everything that's come into the bedroom today. I hope it's comfortable, and I hope when friends come and stay, they wake up to the most extraordinary view out of the windows towards hills in the distance. And sometimes there's a mist which sits over the wild flower meadow, and it's just a few moments peace and quiet in the midst of really busy lives. So that's part of what I'm trying to think about, decorating the bedroom. I did actually ask my husband what he liked as well, so I tried to include him. It's his family home. It always takes far longer than I think to pull it all together. Some patience. It's all about rewiring the room, gathering it together, and sitting here and taking the time to think what is going to make a really peaceful bedroom where everyone's going to sleep well. Then, of course, there's the word budget, which I think everybody knows, but it's really hard to keep to. And my husband's always saying, what's the budget for decorating a room like this? And I find it easier not to have a budget, because if I have a budget, I always go over budget. So if I don't have a budget, I don't go over it. And I always blame him, because there's always problems that you find, challenges in doing a house like this, because the house is layered on layers, and possibly some of the internal and external walls of this house go back to not merely the Georgian house, but perhaps the Elizabethan house before that. So the minute you start opening it up and trying to make it good, you find unexpected problems. But anyway, so don't worry about the budget. And no, jokingly, I try to work it all out over time and pay for it out of money we're earning from visitors who I hope we can soon begin to welcome again. Thinking of a room like this, it's a wonderful room with a beautiful ceiling, with an amazing bed. So that's the centre of the room. And then it's the space when people stay here. So there's bedside lights, radios. There's not a lot of Wi-Fi in the house. We have to specially bring it in when we're filming for Viking in this room. And other than that, it disappears. There's no phones, there's no television. Hello, darling. There's shutters to make the room dark and cosy, and curtains and blankets. Whoops, definitely not. Not this time. Sit, sit. Thank you. And stay, stay. Can't come on this one. Thank you. And if it's cold, it's hot water bottles, and then it's more layers on the bed. So this is how I think about decorating it. I'm also thinking about when I'm decorating a room, it's not just for me. It's a house that has been here 4 centuries. It's a house created in its latest incarnation by an extraordinary Victorian architect, Sir Charles Barry. And although this looks a little bit back to the Georgian room in terms of the ceiling, I think, it's still got Charles Barry's linen fold doors on all the cupboards, and in fact the doors out. So the doors are picked out in quite a few colours of white to try to highlight the beauty of them. And it's something which I hope when people walk into on a tour, when they look over and imagine what it is to wake up in here, it's a beautiful, magnificent room as well, but it's not too overstated, not too extravagant. And I hope it's going to last the test of time and last for another generation, because I think this room had last been painted probably sometime between the end of the Second World War and the 1970s. So it was redoing it again for quite some time. How do you do? Very nice, thank you very much. There's on this floor, there's another, I'm not quite sure how many bedrooms, and I've been working my way round. So each one's both a different story. Queen Caroline's next door is named for Queen Caroline, who was Queen of England, married to George II, so it's still named for her. Her painting hangs there. Or East Anglia, which I think looks back to when there was an Anglo-Saxon kingdom here. So it's named for that, but it looks to the south and to the east. Arundel bedroom is in another corner. It was Lady Edith's bedroom in Downton Abbey. And it has a very different feel to it. It's very pretty, very pink. Another room which was used as Sybil, which has got some really wonderful parliamentary style Houses of Parliament wallpaper. So each one is a different story, but I hope that each one is also coherent and the space flows again. So I've come from not a decorating background, learning through experience and working with an amazing girlfriend who has worked for Colfax and Fowler and now has her own business, Sarah Morris in London, who is such a great listening person of ideas and somebody who pulls it together. So again, I'm trying to get the coherence, the harmony and the balance. So it's a joy to look and visit and a joy to sleep in as well. Downton Abbey didn't merely use the bedrooms on this floor, they also went upstairs and they used some of the bedrooms on the top floor as well. There's no lift, so when they went up there it was always a bit of a palaver, hauling all the different equipment, all the cameras and the dollies upstairs, and then when they were up there, asking all the cast as well to go up there without a lift and up an awful number of stairs and coming up with places for them to sit. And that was where a few other films and scenes were filmed. And the rooms upstairs are entirely so beautiful with the most extraordinary views, even better perhaps than the one in this bedroom, because you have that much greater height. So restoration, decorating in a castle, bringing the outside inside, putting flowers beside the beds, water bottles, lamps that work, lots of books everywhere, magazines, old and new. I hope that's what makes a cosy bedroom, which people are going to enjoy looking, touring, or staying in. And I think the dogs are having a nice time behind me. They're quite young still. They're not even 2 years old. They were born here 2 years ago. 2 years ago in August. Oh my goodness! But what joy they have brought! What energy and youth they are as well. Remind me that how much they have to offer. So I'm going to go on to questions now, and I hope you've got some questions from me from outside in the monk's garden, the lavender and the roses, to inside in a bedroom which is charming, quite girly, quite feminine. And I have learned so much. It has been such an amazing journey decorating in the castle.
Thank you so much, Lady Carnarvon. We have a question here from Rob, who is in Charlotte. He is asking, well, he is saying that him and his wife attended the Downton Abbey concert last June and is asking if there is a chance that it might occur again.
Oh my goodness, looking back to the Downton Abbey concert, it just seems another world away, but it was such a wonderful evening. It was all the music for Downton Abbey, compared by Jim Carter. Julian Fellows came as well to say a few words. It was such a great evening. The feeling, we were sitting outside on the huge field in front of the castle. We had our Highclere Castle Gin cocktail van there, which was such fun. We couldn't make enough cocktails. It was magic. Plenty of food. Oh, it was a magical June evening. So for those of you who missed it, it was great. And I would really love to hold another Downton Abbey concert, and maybe next June in 2021, whoops, don't knock over this, darling, it might be a really lovely thing to do. Something to look forward to, and I think we could spread people out a little bit on the lawns, but I hope by then we'll have found a vaccine for coronavirus, and it'll have actually begun to fade away from our lives, and again we'll begin to enjoy the friendship, laughter, and a sense of gathering together in other people's homes as well as our own. It'll be such fun to do that. I love it.
Thank you. We now have a few questions from people asking all about the gardens. So Sharon from Fort Thomas is asking, what variety of lavender do you grow and how do you dry it?
We grow quite a few different varieties of lavender, mainly Munstead and Hidcote. I might have to lift this up, Kat, so it's less elegant, but less to be likely to be knocked over by the dogs, perhaps. We grow Munstead and Hidcote lavender, and some French lavenders as well. And if I can, at the end of the season, I do simply pick it and leave it to dry. And then we make lavender bags and sachets, which we actually sell in the gift shop, as well as for our own use. We also use some of the lavender in the gin. I mean, the gin is really a fun citrus-based gin, which I think it's just won 6 gold awards now. But apart from that, we use a little bit of lavender in the gin, which we don't have to dry to use. We send it to the distillery. So it is just so beautiful. And the bees love it. Bees love blue-coloured plants. So that's one reason to keep it. There we go. I hope that works.
We've got loads of questions as well about the roses. So Peggy from Florida is asking, do you get most of your roses from David Austin?
Peggy, we do get quite a few roses from David Austin. Not all. I mean, I love some of the very old-fashioned roses with the huge blooms. My husband loves them as well. But some of his roses, there's one actually called Princess Anne, which we use in the secret garden, which continues to flower and has got a very nice scent. So that's a really good one of his that I found. And there's some Ragosa roses that I have bought from him. I like to sort of vary it a little bit, but I love roses, and I hope perhaps in a couple of weeks' time I can begin in the rose arbour, because it's full of promise. It doesn't look as if it was too badly caught by some very late frosts, and I hope that will be a joy to share.
We now have a question from Marcia in St. Louis, and she's asking, are the rose varieties available commercially in the USA?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I went and gave a talk, funnily enough, at a rose festival in Texas, the Tyler Rose Festival. It was a huge gala event, and because I give talks in the USA, they'd kindly asked me to go there, and I'm sure there was some similar roses to what we have here. But perhaps if I do a talk about the rose arbor, I can post some of the varieties we use and see if you can buy them in America, depending on your climate, I guess. But they do well in hot, dry sun. I mean, they do very well in the south of France, and they don't need too much help if they're happy where they're planted to start with, if that makes any sense.
And another question about roses. Mark from Las Vegas has asked, have you ever considered a line of Highclere roses to sell at garden centres?
Oh, Mark in Las Vegas, completely the right question. I'm just trying to see now if I can't create a Highclere Castle rose and a Lady Carnarvon rose. I thought, let's do 2 at the same time as usual. So I am seeing if I can develop that, and I think it'd be a really lovely English stately homes rose to share, and I thought it'd be fun to have a little bit of Highclere wherever you live.
We now have a question from Deborah in Richmond, who's asking, what is the building on the hill outside the window? I'm assuming she must have seen it when we panned around.
The building on the hill is called Heaven's Gate, and it's actually even more clear to see in the winter without the trees. And it's a brick arch which was built by Geordie, my husband's ancestor, in 1737. And it was built as a folly from which you could look back and admire his then red brick place house, and which you could look through. Perhaps at that time you looked through the arch and you looked up to the sky and up to heaven, and perhaps it was Heaven's Gate, or perhaps it's named for Shakespeare's sonnet, which is sonnet number 29, which is an extraordinary sonnet. It begins, when in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. To go to the central quatrains, it says that we're desiring this man's art and that man's scope, contented least with what we most enjoy. And at the end it says we should be like the skylark rising from sullen earth to Heaven's Gate. So I think it's sort of saying there's a lot just in front of us. That's a very bad précis, isn't it?
Thank you. We now have a question from John, who's in Tampa. He is asking, how old is Highclere and is it owned by England?
Highclere Castle is in fact very old. It's got centuries of home. Sorry, it's the dogs. It's the joy of playing tag if you're a Labrador at Highclere Castle. So actually centuries of dog have lived here. The earliest written records are 749 AD. So, but I suspect if the records were then of buildings and a home here, and the noise you can hear is them playing hide and seek in another corner of the room, but luckily Diana, the housekeeper, is not here at the moment, so I'm not in trouble. But so the answer is it's at least 1200 years old and probably earlier than that. There may well have been the remains of a Roman settlement here. There's certainly a Roman settlement just a mile to the south of here. I don't know, perhaps we'll find a wonderful Roman mosaic under where the other old Roman villas were. Always film with dogs because they're bound to steal the show.
We now have a question from Donna, who's in Selina. She's just saying, my husband and I visited 3 years ago and I loved the grounds. Thank you for sharing the wonderful home with the world.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll come back again. I think we all need to live as well as be alive. Let's travel and enjoy ourselves.
The dogs are certainly enjoying themselves right now. We now have a question from Gloria, who's in Lancaster. She's asking, I'm reading your book, Lady Catherine.
Come and sit down. Here, sit, sit, sit. Good girl, sit, sit. And you too, can you sit, sit? Can you sit down? Good girls. Now wait, stay. Let's try again.
So Gloria is reading Lady Catherine right now, and she noticed on the map that there's a golf course. Is there still a golf course at Highclere Castle, and do you play golf?
There is no longer a golf course at Highclere Castle. It was ploughed up in World War II, and it was never put back again. It was a fun golf course. I'm not sure it was one of the best, and actually it went round the bottom of an old Iron Age hill, so I don't think English Heritage would like us to reinstate it, even if it might be quite fun. I don't, in fact, play golf. I went to St Andrews University, which is such a famous town for those who love golf, and I played a couple of rounds because I could play a round for £1, which as a student, so I played a round very badly for £1. My father was a great golfer, and my grandfather was one of the best golfers of his time, so if you like golf, he actually was good enough to play against Bobby Jones, and he played in the Walker Cup, and he captained our army. He was a general in the army at golf. So I have a golfing heritage, but I don't seem to have any time for it at the moment.
Thank you. We have a question now from Susan, who's in Charleston. Are the gardens included in the tour?
Susan, thank you for the question. The gardens are always included in every tour. The castle, the exhibition, and the gardens. And I hope when people come here, they just allow enough time to hang out, to enjoy themselves, to walk around the gardens, to explore without feeling there's too much of a tight schedule. There's quite a lot to see. I hope you'll come and see it.
And a related question, Roberta from Oregon is asking, what is your favourite seasons in the garden?
Roberta, I don't know what my favourite season is. Sometimes I think that every day is the best day. Every day is a good day, and every day there's something else to see. And this morning I went round the gardens with the dogs. They have had a good walk, you might not think it. And in the Wood of Goodwill, there's an old beech avenue which we've reinstated. And we haven't been mowing the grass as much as we might. We mow walks amongst the trees. And I think with less mowing, what's extraordinary is there's been this whole resurgence of some of the old wild flowers from times before. And we've now got so many bee orchids, which is such a joy because they're very much in decline. They have been very much in decline. They're an endangered species, and they're these extraordinary sweet little bee orchids, which I thought I'd post on Instagram, if not today, tomorrow. Do have a look. Amazing.
We have a couple of questions coming in all about the room. So we've got Cindy in New York asking, does the fireplace work behind you?
Cindy, the fireplace, I'm afraid, does not work. We don't use it. It's too much of a fire risk in today's world. So there is, which we pull in, a white panel radiator, which isn't hugely attractive. So we've pulled it out of shot, but very practical. And that gives a little bit of heat, so to those who are staying, and a little bit of heat to the room to make sure it takes the edge off it the whole time. So if we take the edge off the room with minimal background heating, it seems to work well for the building, and by not having too much heating, it's so much better for the furniture and all the paintings. So unlike perhaps in many houses in America, we dress for the season. So in the winter we wear many warmer clothes in the house, and in the summer obviously we can wear lighter clothes rather than putting the central heating up, so you always wear the same clothes. It's just a different way of living.
Jane from Alpine is now asking, what is the white bowl on the floor, which is actually next to the fireplace?
The white bowl is an old chamber pot. So there are now, thankfully, you'll be glad to know, lots of loos attached to all the bedrooms in the first floor. But of course, before that, all of our ancestors were using chamber pots. So we've got a lot of unused chamber pots absolutely everywhere.
We now have a question from Deirdre in California. She's asking, how old are the medlar trees, and what are the fruits, and when are the fruits ready?
The medlar trees, thank you for that question. I'm not sure you'd have them in California actually, but the medlar trees, I presume, have been there for 2 or 3 generations. They may have been renewed. I'm not sure how long they last, but certainly to the 6th Earl's time. And the fruits, like the other typical fruits in this country, ripen in the autumn. So September, October really is a great time to harvest. That's when we also have the harvest festival, or have in the past at the church. And we try to gather people around there. Sometimes I'll ride down there. We put the sheep and the other animals in the churchyard just to remember to say thank you, actually, for the bounty of God's harvest each year. I think I've already come to the end, I can't believe it, of the 10th episode of At Home at Highclere for Viking.TV. So it's gone so fast. Thank you for all the questions. And I hope you'll very much join me next week. Next week's Explorer Week with Viking. And of course, it was the 5th Earl of Carnarvon who discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922. It was the first global world media event. So we thought we'd begin next week in the cellars with the Egyptian exhibition, with my husband and myself sharing some of the Egyptian treasures we have now, some of the story, before coming back up to again explain what we were sharing with you. And then I hope you've got lots of questions which might be of interest next week. I hope we can have some great dialogue. Thank you for joining me this week, and to Stella and Freya, who have been the stars of the show. And I'm looking forward very much to seeing you next week. Bye bye.